New all-time highs again this past week, both for silver and for gold. So we're going to take a few minutes here. We're going to not be practical. Not even a little bit. We're at a point now where all practical forecasts for gold and silver have already been left behind. Any prediction based on practical expectations would have been set too low. And where we're at right now really is the middle of a perfect storm for metals prices. Now, this isn't going to calm down anytime soon, so to the extent that any of our plans were practical, we have to just admit that those were probably set too low as well. So look, I'm not going to hype a thing that doesn't need hyped. I'm not going to spin up FOMO, but everything has changed, and I think we need to get into what that means. But first, let's get a quick shout out to channel sponsor Summit Metals. If you're looking for gold and silver, they've got you covered. If you're looking to sell your gold or silver, they can help you there too. SummitMetals.com. So let's start with price. A popular question right now is, can you still get in on gold or silver, or is it too late? Is the price too high? Now, it's a simple question that seems like it should have a simple answer, but there's a nuance here. I think we need to start by saying it's not a new question. People were asking the same thing in August of 2020, and the answer to the 2020 question turned out to be yes, you could still get in. No, it was not too late, and no, the price wasn't too high. Now, we don't know the future, so what's the risk here? Well, the downside risk is that you buy at today's price, and at some point between your purchase and your sale, the price goes down. Now, I had three main reasons that I started buying gold and silver, and the most practical of them was simply that I was wasting money. It was not this. I was not worried that federal prosecutors were investigating Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell at the time. It was a lot simpler than that. I was a new parent and I realized that I was bad at saving. I was good at buying things that depreciated, and really anything that I wouldn't label as an investment has depreciated since I started buying gold and silver. That includes cash. So my top concern was not that the price of that gold and silver would go down. And of course, it didn't. The gold and silver did not depreciate. In 2008, when I made my first purchases, gold spot was around $830. Silver spot was around $17. Now that gold is up now about 5.5x. Silver's up about the same. Now, I wasn't doing it because of any of this, not because of any kind of persistent uncertainty, not because of Iranian protests or Greenland takeover talk. I was doing it because it was practical. And at today's prices, that 26 ounces of gold is worth $120,000, and there would have been about another $45,000 in silver. Now, I've explained that plan from a practical approach a number of times. $120,000 in gold saved from money that I'd recovered from wasted expense. So things like nights on the town, unnecessary subscriptions, whatever. Just things that would have had no lasting value. Money that would have disappeared either way. Now, there's silver in there as well, but I think we need to come back to that another time because that's a more complicated story. But this is, by all accounts, a very practical and successful way to turn bad habits into something that actually lasted. And they lasted without risk, without changing how I live day to day. Now, there was more to it than that. You've probably picked up that I have more than the 26 ounces of gold that I bought in that 8.5 years. The rest did not come from the plan. It came from impractical decisions. Decisions made outside of the plan, buying on hunches, buying because I was obsessed. Maybe I had seasonal gold fever. Maybe it was just that I had some extra money available at the time to make a whim purchase. So I've made a lot of gold and silver buying decisions that probably weren't practical. Some of them I know weren't practical. I don't even know that they were strategic, but as of today, everything has held up so well that it looks like it was all planned. Now, looking at this from the wider angle, the impractical purchases that I've made have probably done better than my practical purchases. And if I was going to give a visual example of those impractical purchases, well, none of these buffaloes were part of my scheduled purchases from that 8.5 years that I talk about. So these buffaloes, or really any of the gold that I would say weren't necessarily practical purchases, haven't done better because they were smarter purchases, just because there was another layer of timing involved. Maybe I was working off some kind of in-the-moment rationale that I thought was a strong enough case just to get me to do more. Could be a dip, could be nothing more than instinct. But as uncomfortable as it might be to talk about the upside of something meant to be practical, meant to be savings, if I had only been practical all along the way, I would have saved a lot less. I need to zoom out far enough to get some silver in frame here, because buying a little bit of silver in September of 2024 would have been practical, but buying a bunch of it was not, at least not for me. Having hundreds of pounds of physical silver stored on hand locally is not a practical savings model, again, for me. Now, some of the macro events at the time did affect that decision, some of the news, some of the proverbial writing on the wall, and I bought silver for the first time in 4 years. Some physical, some ETF holdings. That was not about practical savings planning. That was separate. It was about making a bet. And really, that's where I'm going with practical versus impractical. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I don't think anybody could say it better than Wayne Gretzky. Now, I didn't want this to be a long speech, so here's the point. Buying gold and silver with money that you're otherwise wasting, it's practical. It's about as de-risked as you can possibly get. So if your question is whether you can still get in on gold or silver, and you're planning to do it with money that you're going to spend anyway, night on the town, new toy, whatever, something that would be gone in a month, then yes, you can always still get in on gold and silver. This is what money looks like when it doesn't disappear. Now, even if it turns out to be the top of a cycle, look, gold topped at $1,920 in the 2011 peak. Silver topped at $48. Look where we are today. Now, maybe you're coming in hot and you want to go beyond practical. Maybe you're seeing news about a commodities supercycle and the price of gold and silver and copper and really a lot of other things exploding. Just keep in mind that the current environment for gold and silver is a lot more exciting than it's been in a long time. You need to shift the way that you're thinking. I said at the beginning that we're in a perfect storm. It's well beyond practical at this point, and that means that there's far more potential upside and there's also more risk. The takeaway here is that if you analyze everything going on right now from a practical lens, you won't get very far. You're more likely to just get stuck, analysis paralysis or whatever. You stop doing anything, and maybe you even get out of the game entirely. Now, I've seen people say they stopped buying gold at $2,000. They sold all their silver at $50. That was safe. That was entirely de-risked. And those are decisions made for peace of mind, which is important. But as we can all see, a lot has happened since then. So your choice is between risk and peace of mind. Everyone has to decide what's most important to them. But this is really a time to make choices. It's an environment that we haven't seen before. And I wanted to take a moment just to explain that my practical plan has really only been about a fourth of my overall gold and silver buying. That's in terms of value. Now, I'm not encouraging anyone to take additional risk that they're not comfortable with, but I'm also not pretending that this opportunity doesn't exist. Now, I know from a lot of different conversations that people are wondering what the right play is. Is it a good time to swap silver for gold? Is it a good time to pull some profit off the table? And again, is there even time to still get in? Now, lots of different questions there, but they all kind of have the same answer right now, which is sure. Now, look, I've already flashed a few headlines. I can flash a dozen more. Banks, analysts, strategists, they're all talking about the same thing. That's continued upside for gold and silver into 2026. Now, what we're seeing right now are big predictions. Bank of America, they're calling for $5,000 gold this year. That same analyst is the one who gave that offhand 32-to-1 gold to silver ratio case. That would take silver to $135 an ounce. Now, all of this leads to this strange conclusion that playing it safe and getting out right now would actually be the contrarian play. So would staying completely practical or just doing nothing at all. Now, this is really the only time I can think of where you could make a strong case for all three options: sell, hold, or buy, and still not sound crazy. But the practical case, which is probably to hold, is the case that I'm personally least interested in. Not because it's wrong, just because sitting out when price activity is doing what it's doing right now feels like you'd be missing an event that really only comes around every decade or so. So I'm going to say this again, I'm never here to hype or create FOMO, but based on a few comments that I've been seeing, I wanted to explain that what I'm doing right now is just no longer practical. If I had to put a label on it, I would say it's deliberate, and yeah, it's definitely fun, but it's fun because I know exactly which part of it is a bet. Okay, let's call it good there. Let us know what you're up to in the comments. Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you holding? Maybe something cool I don't even know about yet? Let us know. And then while you're there, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.